Okay, quick disclaimer before we begin. This is not a crime story. No suspects, no courtrooms, no investigations. But I still had to jump on it, because if just one decision had gone differently, this wouldn't be a podcast episode. It would be a recovery operation, a headline about a family lost at sea. And that's why it belongs here. Welcome to StillFrame. I'm John. This is where we slow down real-life moments, not to sensationalize them, but to understand what was happening beneath the surface. Today's story isn't about violence. It's about an incident that hovered right at the edge of tragedy and somehow didn't fall over. A 13-year-old boy, an impossible decision, hours in open water, and a chain of quiet choices that kept this from becoming a crime scene washed up by the ocean. Let's talk about what really happened. There are moments in life where preparation no longer applies, where experience doesn't help, where strength isn't enough, where logic has nothing left to offer. And what remains is endurance. This story begins as an ordinary family vacation. Nothing dramatic, nothing symbolic. Just a mother, her 3 children, the ocean, and time. They weren't chasing danger. They weren't ignoring warnings. They were kayaking, paddleboarding, being a family. And then, without announcement, the sea shifted. Strong currents don't arrive with soundtracks. They don't warn you. They don't ask permission. They simply begin pulling. By the time Joanne Appleby realized what was happening, the shore was no longer something you swam toward. It was something that was slowly being taken away. This is the first moment people misunderstand about stories like this. Panic doesn't always look like screaming. Sometimes panic looks like silence, like clinging, like calculating distances while pretending you're still in control. 4 people, plastic boards, open water, and the slow realization that this is no longer a situation you can solve together. At some point, and no parent ever forgets this moment, Joanne understood something unbearable. Not everyone could be saved the same way. So she made a decision that defies instinct, a decision that goes against every protective impulse a parent has. She sent her child away. Not because she wanted him safe, but because he was the only chance for anyone to be saved. Austin was 13 years old. No training tools, no strength advantage, no certainty. Just distance, cold water, and time that refused to slow down. He tried first with an inflatable kayak. It failed him. Then he removed his life jacket, not recklessly, but practically, because it was working against him. This matters, because miracles don't erase decision-making. They don't replace judgment. They often depend on it. For 4 hours, Austin swam. Not heroically, not powerfully, but continuously. Wave after wave, breath after breath. And here's where the story becomes quieter and deeper. Austin didn't say he felt brave. He didn't say he felt chosen. He said he focused on prayer, on Christian songs, on happy thoughts. That's not theology, that's psychology. When the body is under extreme stress, the mind needs an anchor. Something rhythmic, something familiar, something that says, keep going. In survival psychology, this is called cognitive narrowing. You don't think about the whole distance. You don't think about the odds. You think about the next movement. Just keep swimming. What's extraordinary here is not that a boy swam 4 kilometers. As rare as that is, it has happened before. What's extraordinary is when he arrived. Exhausted, collapsing, barely conscious, and yet still clear enough to find his mother's phone, still clear enough to call for help, still present enough to hold on until he passed out. Minutes matter in the ocean, and while Austin was reaching shore, something else was happening miles away. His mother and siblings were drifting, for hours, for kilometers. At one point, even they were separated. This is where stories like this usually end in tragedy. Visibility drops, energy fades, voices weaken. And yet, just before hope fully collapses, A helicopter finds them. Not immediately, not early, but in time. This is where people argue about miracles. Some will say it was training, it was coincidence, it was probability. Others will say it was God. StillFrames doesn't rush to answer that. Instead, we ask a different question. Why do some moments hold together when everything says they shouldn't? Because this isn't the first time something like this has happened. There are documented cases of children surviving long-distance swims against currents, people staying afloat for 10, 12, even 20 hours. Survivors later describing the same thing: repetition, prayer, songs, focus. Not strength, not heroism, focus. What faith often provides in crisis is not rescue, but direction. A narrowing of fear, a refusal to let the mind scatter. When Austin says he focused on prayer, he isn't describing a miracle. He's describing how he stayed present, and presence is survival. The miracle here is layered. It's a mother making an impossible decision, a child obeying without panic, a body lasting longer than expected, rescuers arriving within a shrinking window. Remove any one of those, and this story changes completely. That's why it lingers, because it reminds us that life is not always saved by grand interventions. Sometimes it's saved by a sequence of small decisions made under unbearable pressure. Austin didn't know if his family was alive when he reached shore. Joanne didn't know if her son had survived. The children didn't know if help was coming, and yet they endured long enough for answers to arrive. This is why this story matters. Not because it promises safety, but because it reveals something real. Human beings can hold on longer than they believe. Faith can function as focus, and sometimes timing aligns in ways that feel undeserved. Call it a miracle, call it endurance, call it grace. What matters is this: 4 people entered the water. All 4 came back. And in a world full of noise, this story doesn't shout. It simply stands there, quietly reminding us that sometimes survival is not dramatic. It's just stubborn hope, refusing to let go. Stories like this don't ask us to applaud, they ask us to pause. Because what happened out there on the water wasn't just about courage or strength or even faith in the loud sense of the word. It was about endurance, the kind that shows up quietly when people have no margin left. A mother making an impossible decision, a child swimming when stopping felt easier. 3 people holding on, not knowing if help would come, but staying alive anyway. Some people will call this a miracle. Others will call it coincidence, timing, or resilience. StillFrames exist for the space in between, for the moments that don't need to be proven, only understood. If this story made you reflect, if it made you think about faith, endurance, or the unseen strength people carry in crisis, then sit with that feeling for a moment. If you're new here, welcome to StillFrames. This is a place for real stories, told slowly, without sensationalism, without shouting. If you found value in this episode, consider subscribing, not for notifications, but to stay connected to stories that ask better questions. You can also share this episode with someone who needs a reminder that survival doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like refusing to let go. Thank you for listening. Until next time, stay present.